Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's really exciting. I see we've got 300 attendees right now, so that's exciting. Probably a good time to get started. I'll get us all kicked off here, and then I'll let everybody else do most of the talking. We've got some really excited, passionate, experienced folks on the line today, and it'll be great to share that conversation with everybody. So welcome. Welcome to the second in the series. We're going to continue this Conversations on Soil Health series that we started. We are always open for input. The series is intended to help our agency's field staff gain ideas from across the country that can be implemented locally. So approaches to taking soil health to the next level in your area, engaging farmers and partners to problem solving, continuing to find solutions when there are challenges ahead, and leading to increased adoption of soil health management systems. So those are our goals, and we would love your input. We're really excited to have speakers from 5 states sharing their experience today. To be able to ask a question in person during the Q&A session, you can join via the phone line. I know a number of you have done that. We admit you into the session when you call by phone, and you'll be able to unmute yourself and speak. If you want to ask questions, but you'd rather do that via writing, you can use the Q&A pod at any point during the presentations or during the discussion to ask you questions, and we'll moderate those between the two options. We're recording this session and future conversations so that we can make them available through our Soil Health POC team. And so to join that Soil Health POC team, you can go to the bottom left-hand Join or Create a Team option in Microsoft Teams. So you should be able to see that. And you can put in the code. Brandon, if you can put that in the Q&A pod, that'd be useful. The code for the Soil Health POC team is 4TQ. WBCO. So if you put that in, you'll be able to join the team, and you'll be able to get updates on things that we're posting, including other technical materials. So all of us, staff, partners, producers, everyone's learning a lot about soil health. We're really learning that it's a journey, not a destination. There's much to be learned out there. The science is continuing to move forward. The practice is continuing to move forward. It's really exciting just to see how much is happening across the country there. And we are really enjoying sharing this new series with you. We would love to hear from you if you have questions that you would like us to answer during these conversations, whether it's during this conversation or during a future one. If you have topics in mind that you'd love to see national conversation on, or if you'd really like to discuss some regional topics. That's one of the things that we've discussed, is putting on some regional conversations, whether it's for a particular production system, a particular climate, some particular technical issues. We could put on those conversations. We're interested in finding out about what it is that you all have on your minds, that the challenges that you're seeing that you'd like to see discussion on. And also, if you have successes to share, and you would like to introduce one of these conversations, we would really love to hear from you. So definitely do let us know. You can email any of us. You can send us a message via the Soil Health POC team and let us know if you would be interested in chiming in and providing a conversation. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Doug. He will introduce our speakers as we go along, and I'm really excited to hear from everybody and to hear the discussion that we'll have after that. So take care all and enjoy this presentation. Take it away, Doug.
Very good, Bianca. Thank you. I'm Doug Peterson. I'm a regional soil health specialist here in the Midwest, primarily covering Missouri and Iowa. As Bianca said, we've got 5 folks today from all over the U.S. who are going to kind of talk about their journey, what they have done in their individual office. I don't think it really matters what part of the country you're from today, because we've got somebody that you're going to be able to relate to. So I think we're just going to get started. First up, we're going to start in the Northeast. We've got Chris Ribble. Chris is the DC in Bloomberg. He's also a farmer himself. I think you're just going to be excited about what he has to say. So Chris, kind of share your journey with us, if you would, please.
So, hello everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to speak here today and talk about what our team is doing. My name is Chris Ripple, and I'm a DC in Northeast Pennsylvania. We work in a 5 team. A little bit about me: I went to school for agronomy. I started my career with NRCS as a grazing specialist, and we've really taken on soil health since 2012 in the team and just try to incorporate it in everything that we do. And like folks said, my wife and I do have a farm as well, and we try to implement this home, to see how some of this stuff works ourselves. It gives us a better perspective to work with producers, I think. So first off, I just want to say that Pennsylvania has really set our folks up. They've been working on soil health. They got us all rainfall simulator, runoff, all those soil health stuff. And
hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Can you get your mic just a little bit closer? You're breaking up just a little bit.
Okay. Is that any better?
Yeah, I think so. Just make sure your mic is close to your mouth.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so our journey started in Pennsylvania back in 2011, but at first I didn't really follow the journey. I didn't take too much stock in it. I actually passed up a chance to go see Ray Archuleta in a neighboring county, which I regret now. And it wasn't until 2013 that I saw Dave Brandt at a soil health field day in a neighboring county. And Dave talked about all the amazing things he was doing in Ohio. And he talked about his neighbors and his fellow farmers in the drought in 2012, how they had very low yields of corn and soybeans and everything else. And he never talked about his yield once. And when I got done, I went up to Dave and I said, hey, what were your yields like? You never talked about it. And he paused kind of slow and he said, well, I guess we ran about 150 bushel corn and 50 bushel beans. And that was just like a light bulb for me from being a farmer all growing up and whatnot. I thought, boy, that's something that's really interesting to farmers. And then if we can get all these amazing environmental benefits to boot, why not do that? So, I mean, that's kind of where my journey started. And from that point on, I started to think about how can I incorporate this into my everyday work, what we do here at NRCS Pennsylvania. So a couple of key tools that have really helped us and our team. Pennsylvania gave each one of the field offices what they're calling a soil health bucket. You can see that there. It's got a penetrometer, a shovel, soil knife, and an infiltration ring. And I kind of use what I call the soil health bucket method. We go out with the farmer and we take that bucket and I put that infiltration ring in the ground, run it once, and then the second time we run it, it usually takes 10 to 25 minutes, depending on the soil, to get it to go in the ground and how degraded it is. In the meantime, I give the farmer the penetrometer and ask them to walk around and see what they find, and I start digging a hole. It's amazing when the water's running slow how much the farmer will come back and look at that infiltration ring. It drives me nuts when it's not going in the ground. So I dig a hole, I pull out a soil profile. It usually splits and cracks where the platiness is in it. And then it can bring back what they're seeing with the penetrometer to the soil profile. And it starts this great discussion with the farmer about what's causing that, looking at biology in the soil, the structure, their management, what you could do with cover crops and no-till and soil health systems to fix that. And it gives you their undivided attention for, close to 20 minutes. We don't always get that. So that method has worked really, really well for myself and my team. The other thing is we have this really nice booklet that some Pennsylvania partners put together that really goes over the nuts and bolts of soil health that we can hand out and give a real firm foundation to anybody we work with. So I want to say that the soil health initiative is definitely about the team. The success wouldn't happen without our team, and our team is all kinds of folks. Anybody that's interested and enthusiastic. Districts, extension, nonprofits, our local Department of Environmental Protection, you name it, they're involved. And it takes that team to do it. So when we started out, the first thing we did, because we really didn't know how to start, was we had just a little forum. And there was maybe 15 producers there. And we asked, what is it are you interested in? What do you want to look at? And that helped shape our ideas of where we started with field days and those kinds of things. Pretty soon, the conservation district stepped up and they got a grant from the state to focus on environmental education and outreach. And what we did with that was we put in motion a series of 3 one-day soil health conferences where we brought in some pretty big name, heavy hitter soil health speakers from across the country. And we had them, I worked with 3 other DCs and we had them in 3 locations in Pennsylvania. So producers didn't have to travel all that far to really get this high quality education. And that has grown leaps and bounds over the years. We get several hundred people typically at these events each year. And it has allowed us to share the cost of those speakers, but bring that information that producers many times aren't getting anywhere else to them locally. And that's been one of the keys to our success. Part of that same grant with the districts was that we did a multi-species cover incentive grant where we worked with producers to try multi-species cover. And it also allowed us a chance to work with them to go out and use the soil health bucket and have discussions about management, but also to try some new things on a small scale, like planting green or using earlier seeds in corn and soybeans so they can get covers in more timely, or rolling covers and things of that nature. But just really gave us a great time to explore. We did some soil health testing and just really work one-on-one with producers. And that has paid dividends for us here as far as adoption. We did some demo projects, not as successful. We've recently started a soil health farmer network, kind of a mentor network. That's the first time we did this year. We sent 5 guys out to no-till on the plains. And the idea is they're going to come back and present at conferences and help to mentor others. So we'll let you know how that goes. And then finally, this has been key all along from the beginning, and this just kind of happened, but I think you all have these in your county or your offices, is finding that local early adopter person and that farmer champion, whatever you want to call them. But there are people out there that are really interested in this and are doing things all the time in their field and willing to do that, willing to let you host field days. These folks are key. You need to get to know them if you can, and go ahead, because they have a huge multiplier effect out there. They'll help you get more of that stuff implemented as other folks see what they're doing on the landscape and see that it's working. So we weren't entirely sure where to start. So we thought about what do I like and what do farmers like. And I like breakfast, and most of the farmers that I know like breakfast meetings. So we did a couple of breakfast meetings, and the first one we got 80 people there, and we talked about planter setup and soil health, and then we did another one, so on and so forth. And this just kind of got the ball rolling, really, and got us experience. And it went better and better the more of it we did. We focused on doing a lot of field days and a lot of trainings, not only for farmers, but for staff, and field days, I find if we can get some hands-on stuff, some equipment demo, that really works well. Here we've got a field day where we were actually planting corn late in season into dry that we were rolling with rollers on a planter. We've looked at cover crop rollers. We have a couple of farms that are grazing covers, so that's kind of unique. People like that. Soil pits are always a winner. Like this one here, we can see that dark, rich topsoil coming down the earthworm hole and mixing stuff. That was just, pictures worth 1,000 words to the farmers. Tents and things, you got to be concerned about how the presenting goes. You're going to use PowerPoint, how you're going to hear them. Here we're planting green, and we've got some of our local champion farmers showing the other farmers. This is what seed potential looks like when it's done, and here are the pitfalls. This is where we put some dye on an infiltration ring and then looked at soil clods, and farmers and folks really like that because you can see all the porosity in the soil, give an indication of biology. And then we also focused some time on, when we had Cape Fury, and we did a team trainer for our employees, our partners, and our staff, and I think that stayed good as well. So when you have these speakers in for conference, we'll couple up on that. This is the sixth year of our conference.
Chris, can you go back to speaking into the computer? Yeah, thanks.
I'm sorry. These are our conferences, and we focused on those quite a bit over the years. Just a couple of things here. We try to really get some high-quality speakers in that excite people and get them charged up to leave the facility and go do something with that year. It's been very successful. We've had Gabe Brown, we've had Alan Williams, we've had Keith Burns, Jim Horman, Dave Grant, the host of them. Farmer panels are always popular for us if you can get guys to participate. And we've really focused on youth. That's one thing we've done, I think, that's neat, is we've focused on inviting FFA chapters and science clubs, and we typically get 30 to 40 kids every year there that really have shown an interest in this, along with FFA. Positive, and our district works with vendorship fees to pay for those kids' play. Works really well. Something that I've got into a little bit, and some of my staff is doing some on-farm trials. Not a lot, but some, because it helps build that relationship with those key producers in your area. We take that time to build those relationships. I have found, will continue to implement more and more of these soil health techniques, and then others will follow them and watch them. It gives good opportunities to put together fact sheets and also do field days and those kinds of things. Here's an example of a farm that they wanted to, after building soil health for a while, want to know, can we back off on nitrogen rates? So we said, okay, let's take a look at it and see. We looked at a field with covers and no-till and high organic matter, and we answered that question for them. And that's something now they can start to implement slowly over time. We do a lot with planting green. It seems to work well here in our climate, Pennsylvania, and our rainfall. We've done some grazing field days. We try to get some experts out in the field to help folks out. And then here's an example of a farm where, they're doing tillage. It's a commercial vegetable farm. And if you can see that, they have raised plastic beds, and erosion is definitely an issue there. We talked about what can we do to get more cover. They used the beds 2 years because of economics, and we simply just spun some rye on there and let it go, and you can see the result the next spring, how much cover we got in there, and then these are what the vegetables look like. But again, these things, taking the time to build those relationships, they pay dividends, and each one of those farmers has implemented more and more stuff over the years, and I think they have an influence. So finally, just to finish up, relationships are key to this. Take the time to find these people that can help you spread this message about the 4 principles of soil health, and find them early and get to know them and spend some time with you, because they'll work. I just wanted to introduce you to Mark. Mark is a younger fella. He's cover cropping and no-tilling everything, and he's grazing covers. And then Ray and Steve, that's Ray in the tractor. I never can catch a picture of Steve, but both of these farms have just taken this on to the maximum degree and are really just sold on it. And just, it's amazing to work with people, because Ray and Steve's mentality when I met them 15 years ago was no-till, no yield. And now they no-till everything and they cover everything. Really have been a big help for us to move soil health forward. With that, I guess I'll just leave you with these relationships you build are key. Try to find the time. I know our schedules are busy with everything else. Try to figure out how to fit this talk into a planning visit, how to fit it into some follow-up on a contract, or when you're going out with a district or whatever. Spend that time to build that relationship so that farmer gets to trust you and you can sell these techniques across the land. And just remember that plants help fix the soil. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. So I guess I got one question while we're transitioning here. When you started working with folks, with producers, what do you think the first question, the main question that they had was? When you exposed them to soil health, what was their first question?
The first question probably would be, what should I plant? A lot of people focus on that and worry about that. Over the years, we've kind of found that you just got to start with something. And the other question probably is, when we start talking about high residue, can I plant into it? And that's the kind of thing there that really meeting a lot of farmers and learning these little techniques that you don't find in a standard in a book somewhere about planter setup and all that, and just connecting folks has been really beneficial to helping this move forward.
Very good. Very good. So are we waiting on the next one?
We are. Luann, if you want to start sharing, and if you cannot, I will upload for you.
Yeah. Chris, one more comment. You might just make it quick. Somebody had asked what planting green was. About a 10-second answer on planting green. What is that?
But planting green, and our notion is planting your cash grain crop directly into a live green growing cover crop. And then here in our region, we have to kill it within 5 days or terminate it. But it allows our covers to grow bigger, which means they get bigger roots and they make more benefits and feed more soil biology.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So,
can you see that yet?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
So moving on from the Northeast, we're gonna move to the Midwest here, and we're gonna go to Northeast Iowa, Alameda County to be exact. Up there we have a longtime NRCS, or Luann Rawling. What do you have to say about soil health and how you have been able to integrate soil health in your county, Luann?
Thanks, Doug. Doug alluded to the fact I've been here a long time. I actually started with the agency in 1983 when we were the Soil Conservation Service, and we had never heard of a Food Security Act. So I've been around a long time and seen a lot of things. I've been the district conservationist here since 1987. Alameda is the farthest north and east county in Iowa. We border the Mississippi River across from Wisconsin, and Minnesota is to our north. Come on.
So Luann, just say next slide to me.
Next slide.
There we go.
Why don't I see it?
Oops.
Okay, so when I started hearing about soil health, I did not want to hear it. I mean, I had been around forever, and I had a good program going, and I knew what I knew, and I was comfortable, and I was going to retire, and I was going to just, go out on that note. But I kept hearing more and more about soil health, and I kept seeing erosion, unchecked erosion, getting worse and worse in my county, despite everything we'd been doing. Next slide. And I was actually frightened of soil health at first, because if I believed in soil health, a lot of the things I'd been doing weren't the right things. And, I just didn't want to deal with that. But then I went to a meeting and heard Doug Peterson and Ray Archuleta and saw the slate test for about the third time. And I was like, I can't deny this any longer. So next slide. I became obsessed by soil health. I read everything I could find. I saw all the YouTubes they sent out. I just couldn't get enough of it. And I realized that the more I learned, the more I needed to learn. Next slide. And I just want to caution everyone, don't wait for the agency to teach you everything you need to know. This is a personal journey, and you've got to reach out and try to figure things out on your own, because this is what we do. It's so important to our job. It is our job. So I finally got to the point where I was like, obviously didn't know everything, but I just had to start sharing it with my producers. Next slide. So I created a database. I mean, I had a 3-ring binder that was bursting. I couldn't get any more in it, but I couldn't, obviously I'm old, I can't retain everything, so I had to have it to refer to. And I shared it with my staff all the time, drove them nuts, got to read this is interesting. And then we started small group meetings. Our small group meetings were 10 to 15 producers. Our soil scientist, Neil Sass, was one of the primary presenters. And I grouped these small groups by some commonality. If it was younger producers, if it was a geographic area, if it was a common livestock enterprise. In our meetings, we do have a lot of livestock, so our prime meeting time is about 10 to 2. So we would, often just have everybody throw in a couple bucks, and you can see we've got pizza on the table. But we made it real personal. It wasn't just, an ad in the paper and a poster at the co-op. We called them, invited them, followed it up with a personal letter. We're looking forward to seeing you. And we had great turnout and great response. And from this, we also developed our core group of innovators. And I think, they started definitely relying on each other, and they nicknamed themselves the Soil Health Support Group. Next slide. So most of those meetings were in the winter. And so I wanted to get out into the country so we could do some, more demos and reach people that we hadn't reached in the wintertime. So I just divided the county into fourths, and we went out, called the farmer, said, hey, can we have a meeting on your farm? And again, we called people in that neighborhood and said, we're doing a meeting at your neighbors. Come on down, bring a lawn chair. We're going to talk about soil health. Next slide. And so we were able to do a lot of the demonstrations. Again, you can't see these enough. Producers can't see these enough. It just drives home everything we're trying to tell them about, no-till and soil health. Next slide. We took the soil health bucket and we did testing on anybody that had signed up for cover crop cost sharing. And that typically in our county, there's both a state and the EQIP program. We run about 30 to 40 producers every year that we cost share with. And so we did the whole soil health bucket. We also included the Solvita test. I think we found that they're quite interested, and they're used to a test where you take a sample and you come back with some results. And granted, respiration isn't their typical NP and K, but they were very interested in that. And then the key is to making sure that they know you're not comparing their farm to their neighbor's farm. You're comparing their farm now to what can happen if they do the cover crops and start initiating some soil health activities. Next slide. And we took the microscope with us. We started having producers look at the microscopic life in their soil. And again, once you do this and you can actually see those little critters in there moving around, it just drives home the fact that this is alive. This is a living system. And we also, it'd be good to take along a comparison of like a compost pile, because quite truly, until they've initiated a lot of soil health practices, all you see is bacteria. And that's kind of boring. So you want to have something there so they can see some, nematodes and other things, just to create that interest. Next slide. We do an annual 4-county meeting where we bring in experts like Doug Peterson. Next slide. And I began a weekly soil health minute on our local radio station and followed it up with the same article in the newspaper, just a little longer. And for a minute, you will never, ever, ever run out of topics to talk about for a minute. And that's one thing we've got to do, is we've got to keep soil health in the forefront, keep people hearing about it and thinking about it. Next slide. And you need to demonstrate personally. So if you don't have a farm, to practice soil health on, if you have a garden, you better be doing it on your garden, because if we're going to ask producers to go ahead and implement 1,000 acres of cover crop, we have to be willing to try it on our little 20 by 30 foot garden plot, because it causes us then to go through the same thought processes. What do I plant? When do I plant it? When do I terminate it? And if you've got room at your office, try a cover crop plot. Again, look at different seeds, seeding rates, and dates. We've got to live soil health. This is what we are. Next slide. So we can never stop learning. And for me personally, I'm on to trying my first batch of compost tea. If we're not going to try some of this stuff, how can we expect people that we're working with to try it? And I've got to say that obviously I've been around for 37 years now, and I've had more fun in the last 5-6 years learning about soil health and taking soil health to the producers than I had in the previous 30. It's for the first time I've got a very clear vision of our mission and assured of my vocation. And so in closing, next slide, everything we do as an agency comes from soil health, erosion control, water quality, quantity grazing. It's the reason we're here. Our producers need to hear about it, experience it, learn it, and embrace it. And it's up to the field office to bring that message to them in every encounter we have. Thank you.
Very good, Luann. Great message, great message. So while we're transitioning, I guess I've got a question for you. This was from our Q&A. Did you find it difficult to integrate Farm Bill programs, EQIP, CSP, maybe watershed activities? How did you integrate those? How did you integrate soil health into those programs?
Again, it's just every time you talk to someone, so they might come in for something totally different, something not soil health related, but you end up in a conversation about soil health, and eventually that starts leading to those kinds of items in those contracts.
Very good, very good. So you guys have the slake demos on your front counter?
Sometimes, not always. We run out of clods. We run out of tilled clods.
You bet. That was just something I had found, that a lot of offices that had those demos, it's a great conversation starter if nothing else. So, all right, great, and we'll have time for more Q&A for Luann later. So right now, we're gonna move on down south a little bit, and we're gonna move down to Texas, where we've got Brandon Bing. Brandon's a grazing specialist down in Palestine, Texas, which is just southeast of Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Right. My name is Brandon Bing, and like Doug said, I'm currently the grazing specialist. It is pronounced Palestine, Texas, contrary to popular belief. We are in the Middle East of Texas, but
Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right. I was previously a soil conservation technician just last year for 11 years in the local the county next door here in Freestone County in Texas, but now the grazing specialist. In 2011, Texas experienced the worst drought in recorded history. My story is very similar to Chris's in that sometimes we have these aha moments that speak to us. Texas lost 1 out of every 10 trees that year, according to Texas Forest Service. Old timers saw creeks and springs go dry that had never gone dry before. We lost entire fields of grass, crop failures everywhere. It was truly a horrible time to be a farmer and rancher, a land steward. As a young conservation planner then, I got to see daily the impact this was having on their land, their livestock, and their minds. But slowly, as the rains came back and the grass returned, with it came some new ideas for me about land management as I saw how some places were much more resilient than others. It was kind of that aha moment. We should never take for granted these moments that we get sometimes, though they're tough in the moment. These droughts and floods and chaos, they're the very events that allow us to shape our future. They allow us to challenge every thought, idea, sometimes even the books that we're taught with. This is where paradigm shifts can start to take place. I begin to see the impact that our management can have on the landscape. Merriam-Webster has a great definition of the word stewardship. It's the careful, responsible management of something entrusted to one's care. This is a picture of a producer that fits that definition. He's a dear friend of mine now, but him and others like him have started to come around to a different way of thinking, and they truly understand this impact that we can have with our management. In this picture, you see a little streak of crimson clover and ryegrass, and that's where he fed hay the fall before. And he doesn't look at it as just feeding hay to supplement the cattle. First and foremost, it's a soil health builder, and then secondly, it's a free seed source to spread clover all over his property. And then thirdly, it's also a cattle supplement, but a good way to increase the triple bottom line there. And it's things like that producers like him have really opened my eyes to see this contrast of working with nature versus trying to make it to submit to our will. Oftentimes, as conservation planners, we get to see this vicious cycle that some producers find themselves in, regardless of how much money they have to spend, how many bottles of product they had to apply, or how many times they have to disc the dirt to get it to submit. There's a big difference in those two very different producers. Stewards ask the why questions instead of the how questions, such as why is that weed in the pasture to begin with instead of how do I kill it? Stewards are observant. As planners, we should never underestimate the opportunity to point out something very subtle, something very small when you have a teachable moment on a field visit, because you never know what doors of conversation this may open up for you with that producer, and therefore relationships can start to be built. Stewards constantly challenge their beliefs and paradigms. They're not afraid to try something new. Greek philosopher Aristotle said, "It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it." Stewards are system thinkers. They do not think just in straight lines. If soil health has taught me anything, it is how interconnected every living thing on this earth is, much like Lou Ann just talked about and Chris. Dr. Alan Williams often says that everything we do has compounding and cascading effects, and that is so true. Stewards are on this never-ending quest to learn how to orchestrate their management, along with the ebbs and flows of chaos that farmers and ranchers face every day. Stewards have a passion for leaving the land better than the way they found it. They have this resolve. They almost have a conviction to share their message. They never miss an opportunity to teach someone what they're learning. You can hear this conviction when you hear folks like a Gabe Brown, like a Doug Peterson, like a Jimmy Down. And these are the folks that stir me today. These are the folks that make me want to be a lifelong student of the classroom of nature. But it's more than that. The fuel to the fire is the unknown. There's so much about soil health we don't know, and it gets me fired up when I hear someone like Dr. Rick Haney, who developed the Haney soil test, say something like, we might know 1% of what's going on as we talk about soil function and soil microbiology and ecology. That fires me up. The complex nature of it all generally leaves my poor, simple mind a batch of scrambled eggs. I have more questions than I have answers, but it continually humbles me to see how incredibly complicated it is. But all at the same time, it's also this seemingly effortless harmony of everything working in concert together. It leaves me awestruck. It reveals the divine nature of it all. When we received this email to participate in this today from Mr. Peterson, he asked us to answer this question. And really, Chris and Luann have both already answered it, but I'll echo it because it's powerful. The answer for me is building relationships. One field visit with one producer, one walk out in the pasture kicking over cow pies, one conversation to plant one seed, to develop a meaningful relationship with one producer at a time. It goes beyond the relationship of planter and landowner. Before you know it, you've got lifelong friends. That one producer then turns into one herd. This is where it really starts to snowball. A network of information starts to come together as these people merge together. Discipleship happens, mentorship happens, accountability starts to happen. This is where the real changes come about, as everything starts to compound. This is how communities can start to change. The compounding of knowledge and experiences yields a whole that is much larger than the sum of its parts. It's been my honor and privilege to experience this power firsthand. In 2017, we started, myself, a co-worker, and two producers in the back room of our office in Fairfield, Texas, just having a conversation about soil health, the things we were excited about, the things we were learning and seeing. And before long, it started to grow. Today, we still meet monthly, and it's grown into what we affectionately call the grazing group. We've had over 40 events. We go to ranches, we have field days. Sometimes we just have discussion meetings where we'll sit around a table and feed ourselves as well as our minds with discussion. And we have several NGOs, we have several conservation partners, as well as several NRCS employees that are now a part of this group, including producers from well over 20 counties in the area here. It's been a great success, and lifelong relationships have been forged. In 2019, we had the Soil Health Short Course here. We were able to host that here in Palestine. We were able to highlight a few of the producers that are in the grazing group and the great things they have going. We're currently finishing a demonstration project on our producers where we've implemented some of these soil health practices, and we are quantifying the data and seeing how things are changing, specifically for producers here in East Texas. But the point is there's a lot you can do, and it's a lot of things that I didn't know we could do as NRCS agents that this has brought on. I didn't even know this could be part of our job. It's almost too fun. It doesn't seem right, but I'm blessed to get to do that daily, and I encourage each and every one of you, and I hope that this presentation has been edifying for you in some way, that you can take this home and apply it where you're at. Thank you to my fellow speakers here, Chris, Luann, Keela, and Adam. I hope I get to meet you one day and see exactly what you got going on in your communities. And thank you to the Soil Health team for putting this on. It's been great for me to get to be a part today, and y'all are a great resource for me always. And please, anyone out there, if I can help you in any way, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you.
Very good, Chris. Thank you very much. One question I had for you is, other than the farmers and ranchers that you worked with, what are some other groups that you partner with down there? Do you have other organizations that you guys partner with?
You bet, Doug. We currently in our grazing group alone, we have Texas Parks and Wildlife. We've got soil and water conservation districts. We've got Tarrant Regional Water District, which is the water supplier for all of Fort Worth. So we've got a lot of great groups that we work with and conservation partners that are right alongside us, and we couldn't do it without them.
Very good, very good. Well, looks like we're ready to go. Sounds like you've got a lot of things going on down there in Palestine. Did I get it right that time?
You got it, Doug.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're gonna head from the south, and we're gonna move north to the northern Great Plains, and we're gonna move up to the Sundance Field Office in northeast Wyoming, and we're gonna have Keela Denton up there, who's the district conservationist, share with us what's going on in Wyoming. Keela, what is going on in Wyoming?
Well, thank you, Doug. So soil health is an expedition that I embarked on about 5 years ago. I was raised in Indiana, where I graduated from Purdue University, and I jumped right into my career with NRCS throughout Indiana until I moved to Wyoming. After arriving in Wyoming, I noticed the producers in this county, they're hungry for innovation and change that's going to help affect their bottom line. And my heart connected with these producers. NRCS was a job I could have that connected and kept me involved with production agriculture. After moving to Wyoming, I decided I had one of two options. Show up to work for my paycheck or show up passionate about what we do and why we do it. Agriculture is always changing, and the younger generation that is stepping in to take over the family ranch understands they need to make some significant changes in order to keep their operation viable and sustainable. And they're looking at soil health as that leading component to facilitate the change. I've been the DC in Sundance, Wyoming for 9 years now, and despite what anyone else may tell you, this is the best corner of the world to be in. Like any area, we have our own set of geographical challenges with a reduced growing season, manipulated and starved soils, and everything we do is driven by our ability to be able to put the products that we produce into the belly of a cow during the winter months. Winter is a very real thing here. But through some innovation and open minds, we're starting to integrate soil health into the systems within the county. I was introduced to soil health via a Ray Archuleta workshop when I worked in Indiana. However, after coming to Wyoming, it wasn't something that really had any traction. After attending an NRCS employee soil health training here in Wyoming, I realized just how passionate I am about soil health and rejuvenating our soils. I think all of us in the job have a little bit of an inner nerd in us that we try and keep on a shelf, but mine totally latched onto soil health. I came back from that training excited to help teach producers. And with my enthusiasm really high, I approached Conservation District. Our partners are so critical to the success of our outreach. They have the ability to facilitate a workshop, bring in other partners and locate speakers, and bring in the audience through avenues that we as NRCS folks are somewhat limited on. So the Conservation District hosted our first soil health workshop, where regional soil health specialist Marlon Winger came to the county to do a producer workshop and teach the basic principles of soil health. Since then, we've hosted additional producer workshops. We've had 6 workshops in the last 4 years. We've had speakers like Jerry Doan from the Blackleg Ranch and Jay Fuhrer from Anoken Farms. And in my experience, the #1 success to a soil health workshop is bring in a speaker that is from the same region of the U.S. that you're located in. That speaker can relate to your local producers, the local resource concerns, such as your cropping rotations, your cattle operations, your dryland farming and haying, and the reduced growing season. It wouldn't have benefited us to bring in someone to speak about corn and beans because we just don't raise that here. Producers will actively listen and engage with someone from their own herd, so pick a speaker based on those parameters. And I also think the majority of us are visual learners. I have to touch it, see it, and feel it. So another tip I have is to host a field day on a producer's ranch, walk through the field of cover crops, do plant ID, talk about grazing strategies, discuss what did and didn't work. It's also a really good excuse for the hosting rancher to clean out his shop. So I want to take a brief moment and share with you a quick experiment that we're doing here within the county. There's an innovative rancher who is always willing to try any experiment I toss at him. And so we all have those producers in our counties that are willing to experiment for the benefit of all. And I really highly encourage you to work closely with them and network with them and stay in touch and be on site during all phases of the process. When they're out there calibrating the drill, be there. When they get ready to plant, stop in and check the progress. Walk through the cover crop with the landowner, do plant ID, talk about grazing options. Also, when you're putting mixes together, find someone else who's savvy at building a cover crop mix and bounce your mix off of them. So this experiment is, these fields were perennial alfalfa grass mix for the last 8 years, hayed annually with flood irrigation. So the carbon and the nutrients were continually mined from these fields. The stand was weak and it was time to rejuvenate the soil. And this photo is of the first year that we planted cover crops. And I have learned that the first year when you go into a starved system seems to be marginal at best. And it is our job to continue to encourage these producers that they're going to crawl before they walk, before they run. So this was year 2, which was actually last year. And I think we nailed it. So early last year, Floyd came into the office. We worked on making the perfect cocktail mix. And so when you're working with producers and you're developing a mix, you got to start with focusing on what's their objectives, what's their why. And Floyd's goal is to produce habitat and cover for his pheasant hunting operation, yet provide early spring grazing in March and April. So we needed to make a mix that had enough fibrous stalks to withstand our snow load. This year he's planted the same mix, but we've added pumpkins. So I can't wait to see how it turns out. As I mentioned, this is the planting that was intended for early spring grazing in late March and early April with a large stocking rate of yearlings. The yearlings come straight out of the background yard and they hit this cover crop. Grazing with yearlings can be somewhat of a challenge. However, with some temporary fencing and dedication, we managed to get good utilization, good trampling effect, and excellent soil cover. So currently, I'm completing the Wyoming Soil Health Assessment Card and the National Soil Health Assessment Cards on fields for producers. I'm trying my best to gather and establish benchmark data on those fields that are transitioning into cover crop management strategies with the goal to be able to monitor consecutively for the next 3 years or more so producers can begin to see the change. They see it above ground, now they want to know what's going on below ground. And they're excited to get this information. They get on their hands and knees and they do the earthworm count with you. They want to know this information. And as you work your way through these assessments, they start asking, how can I make this system better? How do I increase my biology? And so it starts the conversations. Some great advice that was shared with me was take an hour of every workday and read something about soil health. In the last 4 years in this county, we've jumped from 0 acres of cover crops to 4,300. And I've offered EQIP funding opportunities to help with the transition to regenerative agriculture. We had a private source of funding become available to help cost share cover crops in the county. This group learned about our efforts and they met us at the door with money to help increase the environmental resiliency and capacity in the county. And so we're going to funnel that money through the conservation district. You don't have to have the nitrogen cycle memorized to be able to communicate with producers. You have to be willing to sit at the table and discuss ideas and options and offer what experiences you have that have helped others. So my other tip is get out and play in the dirt. It will improve your mood and your life. So thank you for this opportunity to share my story.
Very good, very good. So I guess I will ask you a question. So you said you went from 0 to 4,300 acres of cover crops. So how many producers is that? How many different folks, and what's the average acres of each guy?
You always have those that go above and beyond. So number of producers is probably 30 to 40 within the county based upon EQIP contracts and then the private source of funding that we have that we run through the conservation district. And average acres per producer is probably anywhere between 100 to 200 acres.
Yeah. So you're still working with a lot of different folks.
Yes, absolutely.
You bet. Very good. We'll have more time for Keela when we get done here. So our last presenter, as you can see, there's Adam Daugherty, the district conservationist in Coffee County, Tennessee. Adam's been a big part of this soil health effort across the country. We've actually had him here in Missouri and done some different things for us as well. So, Adam, what's going on in Coffee County? How did you get soil health to be the huge impact that it is in your county?
All right. Can everybody hear me okay? Doug, you got me clear?
I do. Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you all for having me on today. And like Doug alluded to, we're just going to kind of share a little bit about what's went on here in Coffee County. Just a little background on myself. Traditional NRCS employee, started out here in Tennessee as a soil con in 2002. Done that for a couple years, moved into a DC position for 3 or 4 years. Then went to the area office as a resource con for 4 or 5 years. And then spring of 2013, I was awarded the opportunity to be able to come back to the field based off a passion that I'd had for soil health. And so we kind of hit the ground running. I had a vision prior to coming back to the field based off some experiences that I'd had through some conversations and meetings with Ray Archuleta and Jay Fuhr and, just some of the pioneers within the agency and out in the private sector that really lit a fire under me. And I thought we had an opportunity to do something big here in Coffee County. I'm the one doing the talking today, but this for sure has been a complete team effort. The district board, the district staff that I have here, myself, the guy holding the underwear, Alan Wilmore, he's been kind of the right-hand man along this whole journey. And this is just the office staff, but it really expands more than that. There is a lot of team members at play here. And when you get to seeing a vision and changing the way a community farms and it expands not only in your county, outside the area, there gets to be a lot of team members, and you're going to need a lot of folks on your team. Okay. But, just what is Coffee County? Where's it at? We're located here in South Central Tennessee. That little area right there highlighted in the yellow circle type area. It's just some real good inherent ground. It's been, it's kind of been the hub of large scale row crop agriculture in Middle Tennessee for a long time. And, it's about, we're 99% long-term no-till, primarily corn and beans with some wheat and cotton. We've got about 53,000 acres of cropland reported every year, and we're averaging here over the last 3 or 4 years, 30,000 acres that has been in biomass covers. We got a tremendously long growing season. We can grow a little bit of everything, cool seasons, warm seasons, and we get plenty of rainfall. So climatically, geographically, it is a great place to work. But that kind of leads me into, why be in a county that is, basically 100% no-till, been no-tilling since the adoption of the first no-till planters with extremely successful farmers. And, as I got to looking at how these no-till soils are functioning, they're just not functioning as designed. They look really good from the surface, but once you get down deep into them, they are still functioning at a very low level. And the reason why is because for years we had been addressing symptoms instead of fixing problems. And there's a big difference. Between, the symptoms, the soil starved. The reason why is because we're growing a cash crop. The sun shines all year long, but the cash crop don't grow. We still have surface erosion because, we're not keeping the soil covered we needed to. To me, there is absolutely no such thing as a non-highly erodible field. Every field is highly erodible through vertical erosion. Low infiltration, compaction's not a problem. It's a symptom. The problem, we don't have any aggregation in the soils. And then, we don't have any biological diversity. For 40 years, these fields had seen nothing but corn, soybeans, henbit, chickweed, and a few other weeds. So we got to really looking at, quit addressing symptoms and what do we got to do to fix the problem? And we kind of looked at it from a standpoint of recognizing potential. And I don't really mean for this to come off the wrong way, but, I have a problem with conservation. Okay, because conservation is just keeping something at the same state it's in. It's not going to get any worse. It's not going to get any better. So I had a real issue with, why do we want to conserve a degraded resource? when we have other potential. And we have the potential through these soil health systems, no matter where you're located, as long as the sun's shining where you're at today, you have potential to take some form of a degraded landform and fully rejuvenate it to full functionality. And that's the beauty of what we've got to do. We had a pretty simple strategy of how to do this. It was all based off education, 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 education. And we had a strategic order that we wanted to do it with. First folks need to come on board was our SCD boards, the industry, then we went to academia, and lastly, we went to the producers. And once the education is in place, then you start having the ability to build the relationships, the trust, blood, sweat, and tears that you're going to share with these producers. And it gets to the point that, we take it, we try to have it personal enough here that if we were to have a producer that something bad happened to, or maybe they're taking their last breaths and they're upcoming with us, like, what am I going to do? We want to make sure that we're there for them, that all they say is call Adam, call Alan. They know every square inch of our system, our operation. They'll get us through this. So that's something we got to take serious, that we've got to be intimate with these operations, not just planning. We got to know what's going on out there, and you got to end up being a vital part of these operations. And the way that happens is through that relationship we've been able to build with our producers and in our community, is we realize that the rejuvenation of our soil, it does not come with implementing a bunch of principles, but rather we have committed to understanding the ecological functions of the resource. You have to always understand why before the how. We got to know why we're doing something, why it's necessary, and, why before you ever worry about the how. And it's important that we get that in order. We always got to get the why before the how. But we have tried to keep things very simple in all this. People want the simplistic approach to some things. And soil health, it's a very complicated deal, but it's extremely simple. Sun's the energy source, and it drives it. Plants absorb the energy. They leak out what feeds the soil. And my 9-year-old son drew this 4 or 5 years ago. And don't get me wrong, he's probably a little bit more brainwashed than most 9-year-olds are when it comes to soil health. But I asked my son Brady, I said, Brady, what happens if the plant's removed? And he said, Dad, it won't work. So not saying we all have to accept it, but if I think if a 9-year-old can understand it, us as professional planners and conservationists and professionals with NRCS, I think we can understand it as well. Once you get all the whys, it was real easy for us on the how part, because we just finally started to understand how the soil was designed to function. We started promoting the management that increased these functions, and at the same time we started weaning off the ones that degraded. But we had to do this by maintaining a bottom line and keeping our producers in business. It'd be real simple if all we wanted to do is just start growing biomass all through the winter, all through the summer, and never harvest a crop. So we had to meet in the middle somewhere. One thing that we were able to do is I don't think this will work for any of us. We can't park our boots in these service centers. Okay. And don't get me wrong. We know the job demands a lot of time in these service centers, and that's good because a lot of things good can come out of them, but we've got to be efficient in our delivery of our programs, in our contracting, in the management of our service center. You got to get efficient here. You got to work your tail off underneath those shingles so you can go wear your boots out where they need to be wore out. And this is where the relationships is built. This is where we learn as planners, as conservationists, as employees, as the producers. We've got to be out there learning. It is an extremely dynamic system of what we're doing. It's never going to be the same. It'll change from Monday afternoon to Tuesday morning. It's always different, and we can't approach it as a static plan. It's a journey. It's ever evolving. And just, a little bit how we did do it. We were all no-till to start with, so we started planting covers. And we started enhancing our no-till operations with low biomass covers, started burning them down before we got scared of them. And then this is where we got started at. And real quick, we learned that it's going to be hard to rejuvenate the resource when you're still planting by the pure pressure of the calendar. All right. So we started letting these covers grow a little bit more. This is about year 2. And if a little bit more is better, then by year 3, this is the way we try to manage our crops right now. There's always a lot of in-betweens, but the overall goal is we want to grow enough biomass that we're able to keep the soil covered throughout the whole growing season. Ideally, we like to go in there right at harvest. The cover crop that's been rolled down, it's about 80–90% consumed, and we're about ready to go right back in and start sowing another crop, cover crop. You know, we're in a climate that really allows us to do this with ease, but everybody can still do some form of this because, you know, we all have materials and tools. No matter what part of the country we're in, we all have materials and tools, nails and hammers and saws and boards. We all have planters, drills, and seeds and mines. There's no silver bullet in this, but the silver bullet lies in our mind is we have to understand the tools. Cover crops are nothing merely but a tool. Equip contracts, we view them as tools. It's all tools, but we get to use our mind and our commitment and our passion to understand what we're going to build out of this set of tools. It's all up to us, and we got to be extremely involved. We got to take it serious and realize, you know, we got to have some skin in the game, and there's going to be some cold, hard conversations that sometimes, you know, there is, you know, it's all right to talk to your producers about something that's wrong, and it's all right for them to tell you when something's wrong. But the overall goal is we want to build masterpieces. The masterpiece we're trying to build is resiliency. No matter where you're located at in this country, we can increase the resiliency of our resource through taking it from a degraded state into a rejuvenated state. And, you know, through all this, you know, we've been fortunate enough that we've had some successes down here, and we've not been shy about promoting it. You know, when the magazines call, hear about what's going on in Coffee County, just because you never done a magazine article, don't be shy. Don't be shy. They'll edit it. Have the field days. Invite people. Don't just hold it to the group of people that you're comfortable with. Get everybody out here spreading the word. When the conferences call and want you to come speak, just because you never spoke in front of 1,000 people, don't shy away from it. If you didn't have something that they were interested in, that other people were wanting to hear about the journey and the successes and the failures, they wouldn't be calling. And encourage your producers to do this. They are the best voice that we have for soil health when it's really changed their operation. That's the kind of folks that we want speaking about this to get. You know, it's not about as much the science and the tools as it is about the passion and the understanding and knowing there's a better way for this. You know, make crazy looking shirts and give them out at field days and let people be proud to wear them, because it keeps spreading the message, and the passion will keep selling to where we can change communities and we can change the way agriculture is done in the U.S. And folks, I appreciate your time, and I wish everybody that's tuned in here the best in this journey. Good luck to all of you.
Very, very good, Adam. Thank you. Thank you so much for that message. Wow, was that not 5 powerful, powerful speakers, folks? If you've got any questions, feel free. We've got a couple on the Q&A. Adam, I'll ask you. I know you said your county had 25 to 30,000 acres of cover crop every year. So what percent of that 25 to 30,000 utilizes some type of a program, and how many acres get planted without any kind of cost share incentive, do you think?
Well, all of the acres at some point in time, Doug, have been touched by some form of financial assistance. You know, on average, we're running, you know, 10 to 15,000 acres a year that's receiving some form of financial assistance. You know, and then it'll run out at some point in time where everybody's on their own. The way these programs were designed to work, they were designed to be used as a tool to help folks with the risk, to help folks get started, and that's kind of the way we view them here, is we try to help get everybody started on that, and you know, help mitigate some of the financial risk. And by that time, it's time to kind of get off on your own. And you know, so it's about it. You know, it's really running about half and half. You know, or maybe a third to 2/3 now, is since we've been doing it for a while, that probably 2/3 is no cost share assistance and maybe a third's a cost share assistance.
Yeah, that ties in pretty well with some research that Sayer did that showed about 2/3 of the cover crops are planted without cost share. I think that's really telling. How many other conservation practices does NRCS offer where 2/3 of them get installed or continued to be used without cost share? That just shows you how powerful the soil health systems are. So Brandon, is there any questions? We got 2 or 3 more coming, looks like.
Yeah, there's a few.
Adam,
questions.
what does keep it squatchy mean?
All right. Keep it squashy came from, I was giving a presentation at the National No-Till Conference, and we had just got in a new 30-foot I&J roller crimper that we had acquired through a grant through the Tennessee Department of Agriculture, and it's the first field that we'd ever rolled. It was late May, had some big old gnarly covers out there, and I'd watched 2 or 3 YouTube videos on it, so I was the professional in the county on how to roll this stuff, and I made allude where I was running a video of us rolling this, that by the time we got done rolling this 80-acre field, that we'd ran out 6 Sasquatches, and it just kind of stuck ever since, that if you plant these covers, it promotes good Sasquatch habitat. So, and we'll see 2 or 3. We'll see 2 or 3 every year. We're doing our part to keep the Squatches going.
I knew Tennessee was pretty wild country down there. So, and I guess so we got a couple more questions here. So, and this is for any of our 5 that wants to step up and answer. The question is, what have you found that works to crack the really hard nuts? Those that are, maybe late majority. Is there anybody that's far enough along in their county that they've had some experience with, not those early adopters, not those innovators, but somebody that's a little more conservative, that's going to be a little slower? Is there anybody in the group that's had some experience with those late majority folks? What's a tough nut to crack with them?
I can weigh in here on this. I've been with the early adopters, the mid adopters, and the ones that are hard-headed, and I've not got to everybody. I think the first thing that we got to realize is you're not going to get to everybody. You're really not going to get to everybody on this. But the harder sell folks, it's been more of a deal to me where I've just had to spend more time educating them, to where everybody, I think, really wants to do the right thing. They just have a harder time understanding really how the soil is designed to function. And they may think that vertical tillage pass or that amendment is really doing them some good. So I think it really comes in to just, you just got to find a way to you get their interest. For example, one of my best friends, that farms in a bordering county, he wasn't on board with this right off the bat with me. He was an extremely successful young no-tiller farming a couple 2,000 acres, and talking to him there one evening, right in the prime of cover crop sowing time there, mid-October, and asking him what he's doing. He said he was working in some ditches, getting some weeds sowed down on the ditches so they wouldn't wash. And I said, well, won't you use your head and quit wasting your time? Won't you go fix the problem instead of slapping a diaper on the problem? And I said, the problem ain't those ditches. The problem is you ain't getting any water in the ground up above the ditches. So won't you go fix the problem? And now he's probably one of the most regenerative farmers here in the Southeast that I know personally. And it was just that kind of cold hard truth moment that finally got him, that while he was out there riding around on a tractor spreading weed across ditches, that he all he's doing is wasting diesel fuel.
Yeah, very good, very good. One of our questions that came in earlier was, and I know Luann has had some experience with this, was do any of you work very closely with any of your area soil scientists or state soil scientists? I know in Iowa, the soil health effort is led by the state soil scientist. Not that case in all states for sure, and I'll touch on that, or maybe let Bianca touch on that in a second. But Luann, you've done a lot of work with a soil scientist in your area, haven't you?
And I would say hand in hand with our area soil scientist, Neil Sass. He was at every one of our soil health meetings, and he's our local expert. And couldn't have done it without him. They're there. You guys use them.
You bet. But that's probably not the case. I think what I have found, I mean, for example, and Bianca, I'm not sure if you're still on. You might have the point of contact list for all of the states. I guess my point was going to be, it's really not a specific job for the soil health point of contact for any state. Some of them it's the state soil scientist. Some of them it's the SRC. Others it may be the assistant state con for partnerships. A lot of different folks are kind of the point of contact and the leader for soil health. Some of them it's state agronomists. Bianca, do you want to make a comment on that?
Yeah, I have definitely looked at the list that we have now. I've been on the phone with every state since starting in December. We finished that effort in April, and every state is different. There's a lot of diversity out there. A lot of states do have the state soil scientist as either a soil health specialist assigned or as a soil health point of contact for the whole state. Some states have a team. Some states have those different positions, like you said. So it's very diverse, but I do want to say there's really good collaboration, and I would say increasing collaboration across the agency between all of the different expertises that need to be involved. One of the really exciting and sometimes challenging things about soil health is the fact that it's such an interdisciplinary field. We need those soil scientists who really know those soil properties that are inherent in that situation. We need the agronomists, the grazing specialists, the DCs. We need everybody involved in this so that everybody can lend their expertise, because we really need to have that holistic understanding of how the soil, the cropping system, the production system, the animals, the pollinators, all of those different components of the agroecosystem work together. And so, yes, absolutely, we need to collaborate more where there's not collaboration, and I would commend all of those states that really have very good collaboration already ongoing.
Very good, very good. One more question here, and I know Adam mentioned this a little bit. The question is about infrastructure or partnerships. How important is it to help growers access different pieces of equipment, rollers, drills? Those obviously are going to be hurdles that some people have to jump into soil health. How important is it? Do any of you have a great story about how you've worked with different organizations to provide that stuff to producers? Adam, I know you had mentioned that a little bit.
Yeah, we've done just a little bit of everything. A lot of the producers starting out had drills and some of that type business, which we found out real quick that logistically we wasn't going to be able to meet this demand to get this many acres covered with a 15-foot drill. So some of our local cooperatives, Tennessee Farmers Co-op, they'll have 3 or 4 drills available. Other ag retailers in the area, they'll have drills available. And then we've got into forming partnerships and letting some of these entities schedule airplanes coming in, the high boy spreaders, as far as just getting the cover crops planted. We've had equipment companies come down and demo machinery that we thought would be available, could help producers in the logistics of getting the covers planted, which has been a lot of help, and found out what will work, what won't work. And then one of our other main logistical deals came into, once we started working into more biomass in the system, everybody down here doesn't have a roller crimper or have a planter with stalk devastators or Dawn rollers on it. So, here we have, as this team, we pushed you all to, start managing for increased biomass for all the benefits we get out of that. Now what do we do when we get into these situations that we've got to get it on the ground to plant? So we've had several partnerships with the Tennessee Department of Agriculture where we've actually been able to acquire roller crimpers here in the county that are owned by the district that we rent out for just a nominal fee. I'm talking, $1 an acre, just enough to cover hydraulic hoses and repairs. So, we keep those available. I will tell folks it is a logistical nightmare. Anything you do as far as in the row crop business with these cover crops, it becomes a logistical challenge, and having the proper equipment, just currently we're trying to secure another grant where we feel like as a team we have a potential, especially in the cotton industry here, to modify hooded sprayers and to start burning down some strips early on in March and creating basically these 8-inch wide no-till strips where we have some problems with some of the heavy biomass in our cotton. And, that's a new technology here. So if we can introduce that through the conservation district, to be able to have that available producers before they make that leap to buy that specialized piece of equipment. So sky's the limit. Just reach out, find out what the producers are needing, and try to, there's all kinds of folks wanting to get on board with this and help out in different capacities than what we actually can with NRCS.
Very good. Very good. Well, Brandon Smith, am I missing any other questions? I think I got most of them.
Hey, Doug. There's one that came in early. Can you hear me? This is Barry.
Yeah.
Thanks, folks, for doing just a fantastic job. This has just been so great. There is a question that came in earlier, and there's been a second one come up. And I know here in Indiana, the field folks are really feeling a little overwhelmed with some of the farm bill work, some of the equip and the contracting and learning new tools and all this kind of stuff. And I know Adam talked about it, but I'm going to go all the way back to Luann. You've been around almost as long as I have. How do you guys get the efficiency, like what Adam was talking about, or Keela, any of you want to chime in on this? How do you gain the efficiency in programs so that you have that time that's necessary to get out and get that face-to-face? And that's where I think a lot of our younger planners are really struggling, is how do I get that job done so that I can get out there and really, really ramp up my abilities and knowledge and skills in soil health?
Barry, I think it's just you've got to make that time because it's so important. I realize we've got tools that don't work well, and we've got unbelievable deadlines, but you've got to make that hour or two that it takes to get out there and get with these folks. It's that important. It's why we're here. You've got to make that time. If you just sit in the office all the time, which you could, you're going to hate this job.
Chris or Brandon or Keela, anybody else got a strategy? How's the rest of your staff? How do you centralize your focus on getting this effort across and still get the other jobs done?
This is Chris. I guess for us, it's just a matter of trying to utilize the time you have. I spend quite a bit of time speaking at winter meetings and that kind of stuff, and try to interact with producers in times when it's slower when I can do that. And then just trying to be, for me, being enthusiastic about soil health and talking about it with staff so that they begin to be enthusiastic about it, and then helping them identify producers that maybe I know that have applied for programs or we're working with, that they can go out and spend that time well with someone that they're going to get a good rapport with. And just constantly challenging planners to think about, for us in Pennsylvania, we do a lot of livestock work. We do a lot of concrete type work with storage and heavy use and those kinds of things. But just trying to remind folks when we teach at like camps for new planners and stuff that just because you go on a farm to look at manure storage doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't be talking about the cropland. You know what I mean? Because that's integral to every producer. And we can have that discussion while we're out there, because you can utilize that nutrient of manure so much better if you have a soil that can handle that nutrient and the water's not running off that field. It just makes a better system work. And just trying to remind people constantly when they can take these opportunities to talk about something. I think sometimes if we're not careful, we kind of get in a cookbook mentality, and we're like, well, they only want to talk about manure storage, so that's all I'm going to talk about. But it doesn't have to be like that. We need to remember to talk about the cropland too. And it's hard. It's hard to fit it in sometimes. And there have been years that we talk more and years that we talk less, but we do our best. And I really like what Leanne said too. I really like that point. And I think, Hila, you said it too about learning some of this stuff for ourselves. I have watched countless videos of speakers and scientific documents and all kinds of things to learn this stuff on my own time. That kind of has inspired me to learn more. And the same thing, trying to pass that stuff along to people that we work with and farmers everywhere.
One thing I might add to folks listening, when we start contracting and planning revolving around soil health, our producers have a better understanding of why we may be involved in their operation or why they're applying for a contract. And, just to be brutally honest, I have spent way more money implementing soil health systems than I ever have any other systems I've been doing. However, I've spent way less time managing contracts. It's pretty easy when you got folks that are completely bought in and understand what that contract is 100% for. You're not dealing with modifications. You're not dealing with practice changes. You're not dealing with this. So we have to work our tails off on the front end. But when it comes down to the management of contracts, it's pretty easy because all we're doing is getting 1245 signed, documenting the practice is done.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot from other states. Here in Indiana. We've actually seen efficiency go up in not having to deal with those modifications like you're talking about. That's a great point. I think we get a higher quality contract when the producer is really engaged and the planner, the planner and the producers both been to the same workshop, so they both get it. They both know what the goals are and work toward that goal and use the program for that. Well, thanks a bunch on that.
Any more questions or any comments from the five of you? Any parting words? Keela, Brandon, Chris, Luann, Adam, any parting words for your fellow NRCS folks out there? Keela, if I just start off with you.
Okay, sure. I guess I would just let those that are knowing, or let them know that if you're starting on this journey, it can feel like you're drinking water from a fire hose. But it's so imperative to get elbow to elbow with those guys who understand it and get it. And I can't tell you how many hours I have spent in the field with our regional soil health specialist, Marlon Winger. And it's like every time I'm out there, I learn something new, but it just reiterates what I've already heard. And just making the time to have those conversations with the producers. And I can't say anything other than expound upon what Adam and Chris and Barry talked about. When you do your planning on the front end, it's way easier to manage things. But you just got to make that time to have those conversations.
Very good. Brandon, any final comments?
You bet, Doug.
Brandon Bain.
I would just encourage everyone to find a mentor. I mean, we've identified several right here today. There's somebody out there, even within NRCS, that would be a mentor to you if you're a new employee. And if you can't find a mentor, I'd encourage you to then be a mentor to somebody else. Take someone under your wing. The best way to learn it sometimes is to teach it. And I think those have been instrumental in my walk, finding a mentor and then being a mentor.
Very good. Chris Ribble.
I guess all I'd say as I was thinking about it is don't get discouraged. Somebody said about that tough nut to crack, and I think, Adam, you made a good point. We're not going to crack every nut. but don't get discouraged. I was just out down the road the other day, and I saw some big tall cover on a guy I've been talking to for almost 5 years. And all of a sudden it just happened. It just clicked. So, I mean, don't get discouraged. I once saw too that I think you're going to meet a lot of opposition about this, depending where you're at and what level of producer you're working with. But I saw a quote a couple months ago, and it really resonated with me. It said that don't hang around negative people. They have a problem for every solution. So just stay positive, stay enthusiastic about this, and keep moving forward and learning and promoting the message. It'll happen. So, and your journey doesn't have to be like any of the five of us. Be totally different and still be successful. Thank you.
Very good. How about Luann?
Yeah, I'd want to say, don't forget about a couple things that NRCS offers, which is the RCCP grants and the SIG grants. So if you've got a particular issue, for us it was, we've got a terribly short fall. So we went after and received a SIG grant to look at interseeding cover crops at V3 to V5 corn. So try to, again, like everyone's kind of alluded to, think of those as ways to solve those problems that you think you can overcome. Those are out there, and that's through our agency. Go for it.
Very good. Mr. Adam.
Just thanks everybody for listening, and we're all one big team here. Reach out to any of us. I know I've learned more and probably broadened my horizons and my thought process by reaching to folks outside of Tennessee, outside of the Southeast. Really helped me understand more about the way the soil is designed to function, and just keep in mind that every field has potential. And, no matter where we're at, what I presented, down here in Coffee County, I mean, I'm a spoiled, rotten brat. If anybody, I mean, there is no reason we can't do it down here. A lot of folks across the country, you all are going to find that you'll have harder hurdles, harder growing seasons. But just like Mr. Van alluded to, with the interseed and relay cropping, and Chris, I know Lucas and some of them up in your area is real pioneers in that. Guys, there is a way for us to absorb sunshine on every field. And as long as we're absorbing sunshine and promoting diversity, there's going to be good things happen. It's going to be at different spells for all of us. But, agriculture has been great to us the way it has been. But, we keep trying to force a square peg into a round hole. With enough force, we can keep making that happen. But there's going to be consequences. And, I really think some form of soil health and adoption and you all being the leaders in the community that make this happen, you really have a chance to really help a lot of people out. And that's what we're here to do, is to helping people and helping the land. So thank y'all.
Very good. I just want to personally thank the five of you. It's been very, very inspirational for me to listen to you guys. Bianca, do you have any final words to wrap us up?
I just want to say thank you all. This has been incredibly inspirational. Like you all are saying, yes to all of those really great remarks that you all have made. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. Please do let us know what you think of these, what other topics you'd love covered, what you're finding to be particularly useful. We want to hear from you all. And thank you to you five who have joined us for this conversation to share your expertise. It's been absolutely inspirational. So thanks, everybody, and have a great day.